Welcome to After Further Consideration, a DEI-focused podcast brought to you by Enrollify and Element 451. I'm Dr. Cody Nielsen, Executive Director of Convergent Strategies and Higher Education faculty member.
And I'm Dr. Tamika Ferguson, Assistant Dean for Student Affairs and Inclusive Excellence, and an Assistant Professor at Virginia Commonwealth University School of Education. We're sitting down with seasoned change leaders for candid chats about responsive leadership, addressing campus crises, navigating institutional shifts, and fostering sustainable change, all through the lens of equity and inclusion.
Join us every other Tuesday to learn about these leaders' real-life challenges, lessons learned, and the innovative solutions they develop to tackle these complex issues.
Our goal is to help you drive positive and inclusive change on your campus.
After Further Consideration is a part of the Enrollify Network, a community of innovators, thinkers, and doers dedicated to revolutionizing higher education. Learn new skills, find your next big idea, and network with the industry's best minds at enrollify.org.
Enrollify is presented by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. So on today's episode, we are so thrilled to have with us Dr. Katan Jean-Marie. She is currently the Dean of the College of Education and Professor of Educational Leadership at Rowan University. She's been there since 2019, but she's just not a person who's just a dean. Katan, I am so excited to have you here with Cody and I, so welcome to After Further Consideration.
Thank you so much, both Tamika and Cody, for the opportunity to visit with you and share about my experience.
So for those individuals who don't know you, which would shock me, you have had this storied career throughout higher ed, where you've not only been a person who is producing research, over 90 plus publications, which is definitely something that we have to name because that's such a prolific career of changing policy and the educational landscape. You've also been known as a person who's mentored so many amazing people. You've gotten an award for being a woman of achievement. You just have this balance of being both engaged in research and developing future leaders, and also being a part of the community engagement in the spaces where you live. I'm really excited to learn more about your leadership story. So could you just start us off with how you got to where you are today?
Thank you. So I will first say that I've had wonderful mentors in my life and my career. They have been instrumental in the work that I do. Just briefly, I went through the traditional pathway of becoming a faculty member in higher ed. I did start as a staff in higher ed prior to matriculating. I was working on my doctorate at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro, full-time student, and also going to school full-time. And from there, I reached the moment of making a decision. Do I stay in administration or do I matriculate to higher education and become a faculty member and then come back to administration? And that's what I did, the latter. I became a faculty member first at various institutions such as University of Oklahoma, is where I started my career, and other places. 12 years in, I was going up for tenure, for promotion to full, excuse me. It was at that point I began to explore administration. I will first say, though, after earning tenure and promotion, I had the opportunity to become an associate dean at my institution. And one of the best advice given to me by a mentor who I hold dearly, she said to me, Mary John O'Hare, she said, before you move into administration, become a full professor first. So I listened to that sage advice and just worked for the next 5 to 6 years to become a full professor. Hence, during that time, I also applied and became department chair at the University of Louisville in 2013. From there, I was chair for 3 years, and I started applying for positions, deanships, associate dean, and I had the opportunity in 2016 to become dean and endowed chair at the University of Northern Iowa. And that was far from home. There was that push to come back home. I left New Jersey, what I didn't share, for 22 years. So in 2019, I had the opportunity to come back home. I came back to Rowan University, home, New Jersey, which I've been there for 5 years now. So my journey has been the traditional pathway, becoming a faculty member, moving through the ranks of tenure and promotion, and then moving into higher education full time as an administrator, more so in the deanship role.
What I really like about your journey is that you said that their mentorship that you've received has really been uh, an effective part of helping you get there. Could you maybe talk about how mentorship helped you? Not just the sage advice that you got about becoming a full professor
Mhm.
before moving into administration, but how has mentorship really influenced you as a leader?
And I will say, even from the beginning, when I was matriculating to becoming a faculty member, I remember meeting with my advisor, who was also department chair at University of North Carolina, Greensboro. And I asked him, how do I get this in terms of developing my scholarly acumen? What should I do? So it was the conversation, the mentoring, set aside time devoted to your research, and then really giving me some good advice that informed the work that I do. And I carry that with me. So along the way, I met people, whether through UCEA was a conference that I attended in ed leadership, Linda Tillman, so many others, peer colleagues that I collaborated with. So in some cases, we were mentoring each other. So it was that support along the way with my scholarship, and also as I was exploring other opportunities. It started from program coordinator or serving on committees or advisory board. The advice of making sure that I had a presence through my scholarship engagement, but also leadership development along the way. So those were advices given to me that I took to heart and applied. And then also paying it forward by helping others throughout that process.
Thank you so much. This is such a wonderful journey, and just sort of hearing a little bit more about your story, and obviously starting from a more administrative side and then moving into the faculty. Can you share some of the differences in that leadership development or that professional development sort of differentiation between administration and faculty that really helped you to be an effective leader in both of those spaces?
I wanted to be a student of my craft. And what's the best way to do that is to be part of it. So I studied leadership. The work that I do very much is connected to my research. One of my research thread looks at the intersection of gender, race, and leadership. So my dissertation comes out of that work, in which I studied the leadership discourses of African American women leaders in historically Black colleges and universities. Later on in my career, I studied the experiences of high school principals, female high school principals at the secondary level, navigating gender and space. And I've done other studies related to the intersection of race, gender, and leadership. So I was studying individuals engaging in leadership, deeply engaging in leadership, but also looking at these intersections. And the work that I'm doing is very much connected as a woman of color, Caribbean descent, how a Black woman leading in historically white institutions, navigating those spaces. I certainly draw on the women that I've studied, standing on their shoulder to engage that work. Sometimes you're the only one in that space navigating. And how do you still be present and engage with others so we can move the agenda forward? Whether it's social justice, whether we're talking about a policy issue, engaging with one another.
So I really want to lean into that because we like to talk about leading in crisis and identifying these defining moments for leaders. And how is it influenced through equity? How is it influenced through approaches that focus on inclusion? So leaning into what you just shared about the intersection of race and gender and leadership, how have you led through crises fully aware of all of your identities? And what might be a crisis or a defining moment of your career that you can share with us that really leaning into that aspect and being okay with your identities and using that without feeling as though you couldn't um, use that as a not just as an advantage, but I think a lot of times for me, I find that people expect me to be the Black woman leader. People expect me to show up in a certain way, especially in leadership moments. And honestly, I just want to show up as Tamika Ferguson, the leader, right? The colleague. Because is there maybe something that you felt that in your career, if you had not been who you are, the turnout or the expectation of what might have happened might not have been fully achieved?
So, just reflecting on that question, I'm going to go back very early on when I was a faculty member. There are these pivotal moments you experience something that gives you the pause, something to reflect on. I remember after I signed my contract to become a faculty member, I negotiated what my load would be. I'm there September starting, and prior to that, I received an email from the chair of that department and said, "Well, your load is was this," and I said, "No, I negotiated this load, which was a lesser load." But the individual was trying to persuade me, "No, you misunderstood." And I thought, no, I didn't misunderstand the contract that I negotiated and what my contract said. There was that moment of pause, frustration. What does that mean? This is a contract that I entered with you. And now you're telling me I misunderstand and you're trying to persuade me. So I felt a sense of inequity. I felt I was frustrated. So just quickly, I reached out to a mentor and asked and had that conversation with the individual. And this individual helped me navigate that circumstance. I share that story with you as an example because it informed the work that I do today. So, as a dean, when I'm negotiating a contract, whether you're the first person I negotiate with or the last person I negotiate with, in terms of your contract, the salary, teaching load, whether it's your startup funds, there's a consistency. There are things I take into consideration, that I practice with fairness, that I act with integrity. That's informed the work that I do. What I will say to you, I didn't know at the time when I was trying to defend myself in that space as a pre-tenure faculty, how much that example would inform the work that I do. It's not a crisis, I would say, but it was something that stayed with me. Of course, other examples pertain to the pandemic, supporting faculty, supporting students. How do we remove barriers? And then how do I go about doing that? I'm a big believer of engaging others. It's not about the pace of leadership in terms of trying to go fast, but it's really how do I build relationship and engage faculty, engage staff, engage with others to help us move forward. That is important for me. And I am a big believer of relationship building relationship across the aisle, building relationship to gain shared understanding. And that is so important in the work that I do. Build relationships so we can engage with one another. And that's been part of my leadership repertoire.
There's so much there. Yeah, there's so much there. Cody, I'm looking, we're sitting here thinking about what you just said because I'm interested in that faculty experience because it's not a leadership crisis, right? It's a defining moment.
Right.
And for something to happen where you felt that something was inequitable, you got the mentorship, you had a response, you were able to do so with more confidence. You are right that a lot of pre-tenured folks or folks that are just entering the job market or an individual who might be coming from an administrator to being a faculty member or a fresh PhD grad, they might not have the level of confidence to be able to engage in a conversation where they might be seen as challenging or they might be seen as not being a good colleague, which I think is what people try to mischaracterize. Just stay in your space and do what you're supposed to do. And as a marginalized individual, you're not supposed to hear that in every space. Sometimes it's not about that. When you said that it influenced the work that you did. Is it that it influenced your research trajectory or did it influence kind of how you supervise? Like, what do you feel like it impacted the most?
It influenced that I understand the person who's negotiating with me may not have be aware of what the possibilities could be. So as the leader, as the dean, it is my responsibility to create the right package that would benefit the individual. That's not to assume individuals are not receiving the mentorship. They are, in terms of before you go into you enter negotiation, consider X, Y, and Z. Many people do, and some don't. And it's incumbent upon me that I want to be able to invite individuals to join us, to be part of us, that you have the resources, that you have the package, and that I honor that package that you entered with me. That's my role as the leader. And it's also important for me that there is fairness, because the person who can ask and ask for all of the resources versus the person who doesn't know what to ask. I don't want to create inequities. So I want to be sure there's a level playing, there's a starting point for everyone, that you would come into this space, or the package you would receive is one that you're proud of, that I have a good package. That's important for me. You don't know what you don't know. And so I use the example of that experience. I don't want to suggest the person wanted to do harm. But I knew what I felt. I knew what I entered. I knew the contract I signed. I understood the contract. I didn't misunderstand. So it was frustrating. And it could have silenced me, but I chose that. That was not going to happen. But I had great individuals, mentors that I can share and engage with to help me navigate that space.
Yeah, this is really deep stuff, and I really appreciate this. I want to sort of go back. We were sort of talking about those sort of differentiations between faculty roles and administrative roles. Like, can you share one of those like sort of defining leadership moments that shaped you when you were in that more an administrator role for us?
So the reason, part of you referenced earlier about why do I stay engaged in research, and the value of that is to always stay connected to the experience for faculty. And it's also an opportunity for me to mentor others. So what I do, and I'll give another example. I was meeting with a faculty member in my role as dean, who wanted to re-engage with research, wanted to re-engage with writing, because this person wanted promotion, to eventually move towards promotion to full. And in that conversation, one on one, having a conversation, what's the work you've been done? Share with me your experience. It provided an opportunity to say, for me to engage that individual. If you're committed, I want to provide you a collaboration opportunity with a publisher that I have that reached out to me for us to collaborate. And I said, if you're committed to this, we're going to set aside time to meet weekly, bi-weekly, to work on this. In this case, it was an edited book proposal. I said, I want to go back to the publisher and we're going to put together a proposal. So I wanted to provide that mentorship. And the person said, I'm in. I said, okay. We're going to get it on our calendar. We're going to set time. Sometime we'll meet during the day. Sometime it will be weekends. It will be Sunday. It will be evening. And that's what we did. We wrote the proposal, connected with the publisher. It went for review. It was accepted. And then here we go. For the next 2 years, we worked on the edited book, recruiting individuals for the book, mentoring, involving students, involving other faculty members across the country. And the other thing that I did, I reciprocated authorship. While I was the person who the publisher approached, I'm further along in my career. I'm a full professor. I'm a tenured full professor in a dean role. And so what I did, I said to the individual, you take lead with just this initiative and we're going to work together. I'll come on as second author, and it's going to provide you the opportunity to engage this work. So it was both a mentoring and also an opportunity to work with my faculty member who wanted more opportunities to engage in the scholarship. And this is an example of being still connected to research, the scholarly practice of the work that I do, so I can mentor others. I value that tremendously.
Just as I'm listening, it makes me think about your approach as a mentor. in your role as a dean and as a full professor. And I would say I've had the benefit of having that, not necessarily always with research, but just that mentorship of helping to pull out the best in your assistant and associates and even full professors.
Mhm.
Do you believe that if deans can lean more into a mentorship, or not just deans, but senior leaders can lean more into a mentorship approach, that they'll find ways to really get the best out of those who follow them and provide additional opportunities for professional and even personal growth?
I do believe that the mentorship is part of the work we do. In to build leaders, we have to. Part of the work involves mentoring others. That's the work. As I'm leading, and my Gmail is lead with me. I do believe that and subscribe to that idea of building, leading with others and building capacity, the capacity of others. It's not just my faculty. Folks have approached me as whether it's a conference, I want to write, I've seen your work. I've extended publication opportunities where we co-author on a book chapter that I've been invited. So I do believe I've had the opportunity, people extend it for me to be an associate editor for 5 years of a journal and an editor of a journal. In the different ways, people extended those opportunities to me. They were in leadership roles. So I do believe as leaders, the tasks, our responsibilities include mentoring and leading and bringing others along with us. And that's modeling the experience, engaging them in the work.
You mentioned earlier this need for us to focus on relationships, and obviously that mentoring relationship really plays out. How do you see the current discourse on campus, whether it be in the sort of anti DEI movements or the political strife that we see, or just simply the sort of strain that we see on faculty right now about tenure and promotion? How do you see the sort of that, all of that sort of embodied amalgamation of things affecting the building of relationships, and like how do we strengthen those in the middle of that world in which we have so many competing agendas right now, on all of these folks?
So I'll share with you when I began, whether when I started at UNI, even when I was chair, and even in my current role, I started with listening sessions. I developed a series of prompts and invited faculty and staff to meet with me. And meeting with me meant I went to their offices to meet with them. And I really wanted to understand the culture, the climate. And I did that when I started. So I'm getting ready to go back again this time. I've asked my departments, we've restructured, we've celebrated our centennial, we're still navigating through some of the challenges of the pandemic. So most recently, I've asked my department chairs, and I said it at our college assembly, our first college meeting with faculty and staff, I want to come and visit. I want to come and visit. Please provide me 30 minutes, whether it's the beginning of a meeting or towards the end of your department meeting. And that's my way of connecting and hearing from the department specifically. What are your big ideas? What are the things you're still contending with? What else do we need to be focusing our efforts? Because they give me so much input that inform the types of resources, the practices we engage in to support faculty, staff, and students. So it's that engagement, the engagement holistically as a whole with the group, the engagement in small groups. I do coffee and conversation. I've been doing that for the past 2 years. It's no agenda. Literally, it's coffee and conversation. I have no agenda. I bring no pens, no note. It's open for faculty and staff to come and visit with me. What's on your mind? And it's also a wonderful opportunity to get to know them, for them to get to know me. Because I recognize they see the dean and not necessarily, not always Gaetan Jamri, the person. And I understand that. So what an opportunity to engage and meet with my faculty, with my staff. What are the things that you're still struggling with? So specifically, the undercurrent that we're in, the shift away. I see what's happening in North Carolina, the dismantling of DEI, how it's impacted individuals. So for us as an institution, how can we be attentive to those issues too? We're still committed to DEI. We have a diversity in action committee focused on DEI. What my role has been is to provide funding resources. Our faculty are leading these efforts, and how can I support them? So the relationship building also provide opportunities to connect, hear what are the needs, and how can I support my faculty, staff, and students. What barriers do we need to remove? Which then by impact how I engage my provost, what to bring to his attention. Here are the things that are on the horizon. Here are the things where I need your support with. So, also, my dean colleagues, I am committed to this idea of building relationships across the university, whether it's the budget team at the university, to understand, educate. There's this book I read about leadership. You have to educate below, in the middle, and also up. That is important to bring others into the issue. So the listening part is very important.
So what I appreciate about that is that I think that there are leaders who are aspiring to constantly, grow, and they don't mind moving to different institutions. And some folks look at leadership as from where I am and down. I really appreciate your response because you have this holistic understanding that I'm leading up, I'm leading across, and I'm also leading with other people following me. And that is a very integrated way of approaching leadership. But the hallmark of what I am gleaning and learning here is really the importance of your approach. It's not just I'm putting a meeting on someone's calendar. I'm being intentional. I'm creating space. I'm not dictating that space. And you're modeling that at varying levels. And it's very commendable because I've heard advice from folks that talk about set up networking meetings and do the town halls and the round tables. And they got like the pieces of the strategy down, but it's the implementation of those I think that develops the quality that really is a desire to be more collegial and more collaborative. And you can pick up the phone and call, or you can walk over to someone's office. So I appreciate that about what you're sharing. So thinking about someone who might be listening and they are maybe at the cusp of becoming a senior leader, or maybe they are a senior leader at a new institution, do the strategies that you have work only if you've been somewhere a while? Or do you feel as though you can really employ those at every level? Because I ask that because I think, again, we go to the leadership meetings, we read the books, we hear the strategies, and a lot of people are doing what they're being told, but it's the finesse, it's the intentionality. I think that's different in how you're presenting it. So, what recommendations would you provide to someone who's new or aspiring to really build relationships that are purposeful and collaborative in nature?
So first, I use this adage of connecting people, purpose, and practice. I'm very interested in what people are passionate about. So I tune into what people share with me, what they're passionate about. So I use that and add that to my mental memory, keep that, because I'm in spaces that my faculty or staff may not be, or opportunities as I'm engaging with our districts or New Jersey Department of Education or the commissioner who came to visit with us. So constantly seeking opportunities. Here are our faculty with the strength they bring in, our staff, so I can connect them. Because what I do know about the practice of leadership or just being an individual, what you're passionate about, you're going to engage the work. So I'm looking to connect people. I just give you a quick example. We had a proposal due for the Department of Ed. 2 days. We had 2 days. The note of 2 days to put together a proposal. So quickly, with some of my leadership team, what faculty members can we put together who will come and meet with us on a Wednesday and have this done to send in by Friday? And it was identifying folks who are committed to the particular area of emphasis. And the team came together and we were working. We worked together. We met face to face and then we met online and we put together this proposal. It was, thank goodness, it was 4 pages, but we submitted the proposal on Friday when it was due. But it was being cognizant of who's passionate about this particular topic that we can bring people together to engage the work. So as a leader in responding, what skills are transferred? What do you bring as an individual to the work you do? It is so important for me to be a leader of learning. I'm constantly learning. So I read, I do audio books. I'm constantly reading outside of my genre to add to my leadership toolbox. So it's not only relationship building, but it's also connecting with individuals because leadership is challenging and sometimes can be isolating. But how do you bring others with you? So I seek my mentors. My mentors are my peer dean. I seek the advice of my provost. So I engage individuals in the work. And then you also have to share about the work you're doing and also be in the space to engage individuals so they can share, here are the things I'm troubled by. And that provides me a space to bring people into the discourse because then you're inviting individuals in. They don't have to agree with you, but creating the space to provide additional perspective. Here's why I'm thinking about this way. And then also providing the space for people to own the work themselves. Let's own this work together. It is us. The work that I do is very much connected to the people I'm working with. They matter to me. This is not about positionality. This is the opportunity to lead an organization to support my faculty, students, and staff and the communities that we serve. And how do I invite individuals to be part of that work with me? What are you passionate about? Okay, you may not be passionate about this one, but you're passionate about this area. I'm inviting you in that conversation. So that means I'm constantly observing, I'm constantly taking in data, making mental notes. Here's this data point, here's that data. And then the other part for me too is to pace change. What are you learning about the institution? I've been both at R1 and R2 institutions. How are you allowing yourself to be educated and learn the system you're in? It's not coming in to enact change. You're going to quickly learn that you're going to have to pull back, let the institution educate you, then it helps you decide how you navigate. That doesn't mean you won't impact change, you will. But understanding and respecting understanding the context and how people navigate. Those folks who are apprehensive, not ready to move forward, why? What's it has influenced? What are the things that have factors that have influenced why they may not trust you or willing to move forward with you then? It's data. What am I observing? To learn about the institution, the individuals, the students who are part, and that will guide my pace of change.
I just want you to know I've just become a leader of Dr. Jean Marie because I'm listening to you talk, and you're putting into this very brief narrative what I think a lot of folks hope to understand and be able to do with purpose in their leadership experience. So I'm over here taking notes. I don't know if you can hear me typing or not, but I have all of my bullets. I have leader of learning. I have pace change. Let's own this work together. In leadership can be so isolating. And when it becomes isolating, you do not want to collaborate. You fear actually building relationships because you start to build up almost this lens and these biases against people because it's coming from a place of harm. Because isolation can mean that you're being isolated or you're actually just driven into isolation. And when you are a new leader or aspiring to lead others because you're enamored by the title, you're enamored by the assumed power and authority that comes with some positions. But I think that some folks become so excited about leading and they're like, I want to be just like her. She's published so much. She's led so much. She's mentored so much. But what I just heard is a response of wisdom that you've had to be a present leader, a learning leader, and also a selfless one to be able to give up those spaces that people desire. You hand it off and you share it. And that to me is something that demonstrates a level of character that I think that has to be discussed. And to be able to even do that, you have to create space just outside of your work for that to be developed.
And I'll add to that, I'm grounded in my faith. And that's important. Whatever you're grounded, find the thing that grounds you because you carry on the burden of others. That's the work of leaders. You're here to problem solve, to resolve issues, to find a way forward. And you consume all of that. And where do you go to have your outlet to decompress? Whatever that is for you, I'm grounded in my faith. And it's also just as important for me to take care of myself. I haven't always done that. I'm being more attentive to that. So I can release all that I take in and to be able to come back and give more. If I learned nothing else about the pandemic, I didn't get to, it was important for me to show up and be present because I felt the responsibility of my faculty, my students, my staff relying on me. So I had to show up and be present. But that didn't mean when I go home or when I was home that I wasn't exhausted because you show up again the next day because I'm asking him to transition virtually to be in this space 8 hours on this platform, 8 hours. That is mentally and physically exhausting. Asking them to pivot. I don't get to show up and say, oh, I can't do it. I won't do it. I have folks counting on me. But that comes with a lot of responsibility. Where do you have your outlet? And what did I do to begin? I picked up gardening. I wanted to find an outlet to create and build and bring joy, more joy to me, to bring that disposition forward and not show a sense of despondent. It was hard, but I needed to be present and encouraging to my faculty because it was hard for them. I couldn't show up tired when I know they're tired. I wanted to be just as engaged, excited to encourage them, but I needed an outlet. Where do I go to refuel? It is so important as leaders that you refuel. You define that for you. It doesn't have to be complex. What are the things that bring you joy? Find that. So you carry that as part of your leadership practice. What are you adding to your leadership toolbox? I read a lot. I do audiobooks a lot in my car. It is so important for me. I listen to music. I love whether it's gospel or it be different types of music. Find what works for you so you can come back into this space and engage.
As we get close to the end here, coming back around to that work, we're moving toward the end of our opportunity to be with you. Could you maybe share for us sort of two actionable strategies from an equity and inclusion sort of mindset that you might leave for our audience that sort of is something for them to take with them as we leave this episode today?
Thank you. So, one of the things that I do, and I've alluded to, is the question that I ask. There are two questions related: who is in the room? And you can use it metaphorically and also literally. Who is in the room, followed by who is not in the room. That is both about inclusion, it's about equity, it's about diversity. I don't take lightly there are times I'm in spaces that I'm the only person in the room, and I ask why, and also ask why others are not in the room. So that informs how I engage others about how do we bring others into the discourse because there are policy decisions being made that may not always consider folks who will be impacted by this, folks who are typically whose voices are not part of the conversation. So so that's the first two things you asked me. So I'm combining the two about who is in the room, who's also not in the room. The second point I want to highlight: don't miss the moment to take action, to speak up, because you may not have it again. So, people, if you know me well, I'm not always the person who's going to be the loudest person to speak in the room because I'm observant, I'm listening, I take notes, but be very clear that I will not miss the moment to raise critical questions, provide different perspectives, give us food for thought, because that's important. I don't want to walk out of a conversation or a space, and I've done that in some cases and thought, oh, did I miss the moment? And I'm asking folks, don't miss the moment to provide a perspective, to ask a question that others may not have thought about. That's our role as leaders, as individuals.
I am just so excited that we had this opportunity. It was fun just to catch up. It was also exciting to learn more about how you approach this work with so much purpose in mind. And I think that's what I'm taking away. I'm taking away that to be a leader who has an impact, that will be one that can reverberate even when they're not in the room, that approaching and asking who's not there, and asking why I might be the only one there, making sure that I'm collaborative and I'm focused on the relationship building that's intentional. Then find ways to mentor people not only towards their passions, but helping them to also do something that's great to move the institution forward. But most of all, I'm going to update some of my playlists. And I don't have a green thumb. To be honest with you, I have a cactus. That's the only thing I've been able to allow to live for over 2 years. But I am definitely going to be inspired to maybe look into gardening, because I love the phrase that you use, that you like to make things beautiful. And I think that that is so inspiring. And I think that's a great way to just even think about our conversation today. So Cody and I want to say thank you so much for being with us today. Gatan, you're amazing. And your impact is such a phenomenal experience that so many get to learn from. So we are so excited that you joined us today. And thank you for joining After Further Consideration.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
That wraps up today's episode of After Further Consideration. We hope our conversation has sparked new ideas and provided valuable insights for your own work in advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion on your campus and beyond.
Thank you for listening in. Remember, fostering meaningful change is a journey. Be encouraged and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in creating a more inclusive educational environment. After Further Consideration is a part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too.
Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional.
Our shows feature a selection of the industry's best as your host. Learn from Brian Piper, Allison Tercio, Eddie Francis, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed.
Enrollify is presented by Element 451. The next generation AI student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.